agriculture, education, public health, science and technology, mother-child welfare, and the problems faced by weavers and artisans in this country. Yes, this is our Honorable Minister of State for Human Resource Development, Higher Education, Government of India, Srimati Dr. Daggupati Purantheswari, who won from Visakhapatnam Parliamentary Constituency in 2009. In appreciation of her performance in Parliament, the Asian Age adjudged her as the best parliamentarian for the year 2004. She has been nominated to several panels which drew from her sagacity and wisdom. Her oratory skills won her global recognition, and she is appreciated by great luminaries for her sincerity in everything she does. Dr. Purantheswari also authored a book, In Quest of Utopia. She is well versed in 4 languages, and also Dr. Purantheswari has great versatility in Kuchipudi. With this brief introduction, I now request Somesh Das Gupta to felicitate our chief guest.
Shri Pritam Singh ji, Mr. Somesh Das Gupta, Vice President, Nipm, Kolkata, Vice Chancellor Nipm, Professor Subramaniam, National President of Nipm, Mr. Ram Mohandas, Shri Kanwarji, Sivaram Krishnanji. I was very excited when I was seeing the students clap whenever they heard the name of Professor Sivaram Krishnanji. I strongly believe that students clap very loudly on 2 occasions. One, in complete appreciation and admiration, or second, when they want the guest off the dais. So I wasn't sure which one, but definitely knowing Professor Sivaram Krishnan, I thought, yes, you were quite excited and you were to have him on the dais rather than off the dais. And of course, Shri Muralidhar Rao-ji, Secretary of Nipm, distinguished guests seated before the dais, ladies and gentlemen, and dear students. The chief guest, I believe, very strongly is always at a disadvantage. We come with thoughts, we sit here on the dais in our seats, squirming all the while, listening intently to the speakers before you, hoping and praying very sincerely that they don't speak what you want to speak. But unfortunately, you have the speakers before you say everything you want to speak or you want to say. But however, I must say that it is an honor and a privilege to be here. A privilege to be sharing this evening with the distinguished guests and the bright students, and an honor to be sharing the dais with Padma Shri Dr. Pritam Singh. I also believe that it's been grave injustice done to me today in having to speak after Dr. Pritam Singh. I mean, after having listened to him speak so beautifully, so intently, so eloquently and articulately, I don't think that anything that I say today is going to make a real difference or a real impact. But I must say, listening to him was wonderful, and he had beautifully outlined what HR is all about, the power that HR managers do have, HR professionals have, and I'm sure that we will all leave this auditorium enriched and empowered to carry out the duties as HR managers and as HR professionals. It was wonderful, Dr. Preetham Singh, to have listened to you. And I do hope that all that you have just said remains in our mind even after we step out of the room here today. It was interesting when I was listening to him when he said that how all over the years we have watched the sun rise in the west and not in the east. And today, time is right for us to realize and understand that the sun is rising in the east. It bears a lot of truth in what he had just said. I think the global power today is definitely shifting from the west to the east. And it is here that we actually need to gear ourselves up as one of the nations that is rising to be a power of the 21st century, to live up to not only the expectations of our own nationals and our own citizens, but also the global citizens as well. Surveys after surveys have emphasized that India is going to grow to be the power of the 21st century. Barring probably a little upheaval now and then, the fact that India is going to grow to be a global power is, they say, is something that is very connected to ground realities. Therefore, we as Indians dreaming to become world leaders, I think, is not far from reality. He also emphasized on the demographic dividend, the demographic numbers that we have in our country, and had asked us to introspect to see if this demographic dividend would, or rather these demographic numbers would convert themselves into a dividend, and how we convert them into a boon or a bane would now depend on how we would want to invest in the demographic numbers that we have in our country. Often I would hear the debate in Parliament after I had entered the Parliament in 2004 as to whether we need to, in ways, loved to compare our country to a fast-moving train that had just applied its brakes. A fast-moving train having applied its brakes does take a little while to travel before it comes to a complete halt. And I believe very strongly that the population scenario in our country is in such a situation where we have applied our brakes and it's going to take us some time before the actual stabilization happens. So what is essentially required here is not incentivizing or disincentivizing somebody to control the population, but rather investing in them to ensure that they actually turn out to be the leaders of tomorrow. And they would actually be the ones who would take our country to its rightful position, and that is right on top of the Comity of Nations. He had spoken about leaders, world leaders, and innovators. Yes, we believe we no longer need people who do things the same way as probably we did or our ancestors did. What we need today is to develop leadership at all levels. We need out-of-box thinkers who would actually take on the reign of our country. Let's not forget that we do have in our history people whom we can take as strong examples. We can talk of an M.S. Swaminathan who actually brought in the Green Revolution. We can talk of a Sam Pitroda who brought in the telecommunication revolution. We can speak of one Mr. Sridharan who made the Konkan Railway a reality. Now these are leaders. Why do we not think of them? Why do we not talk of them? Why do we not want our future generations to emulate them? These were people who not only did things differently, which brings to my mind the words of management Guru Shiv Khera when he said, leaders do not do different things, but they do things differently. And that is exactly what these leaders had done. They had done things differently to make a difference to society, to make a name for themselves, and to make a name for our own country. So, I think history is full of examples. But however, let us not forget that in our quest for innovation, in our quest for technology insertion, we must not lose the humaneness in us. He touched the chord right when he said that technology probably is separating us from the humaneness that is required to be in us. This brings to my mind the story when I was little, which was related to me by a cousin of mine who was coming from, who was settled in the West but who had come down for his holidays. When he said there was a case that was happening in the US at that point of time. There was this young child in a class who was actually sending, I think through his mobile, he was actually sending SMS, a kind of an SMS to all his, rather not an SMS, but rather a video clipping about his teacher who was actually teaching in his class. And it was a porn. It was a pornography which he was sending about his own teacher. When the teacher realized, because she saw the kids giggling, and when she walked up, she saw the students sharing this on the mobile phone, when she had actually filed a case against this little kid in the court. And then the case went on for quite a few days, a number of days. And finally, the judgment that came out was that the parents of this child and the other child, two children who were involved in this, need to actually apologize to the teacher and pay her compensation for the damage that they had done to her reputation. Which is when the teacher said that I do not want any damage, any compensation to be paid to me as damage, but rather I would want this case to be highly publicized so that children would realize that they are losing the humanness in them by keeping so much in touch with technology that they even forget that they are hurting the sentiments and the reputation of the other people. So I think this is very important, a very important message that Dr. Nipm Singh had sent out today. In our passion, in our obsession for technology insertion, let us not lose the humanness that we need to have. We need to take the multitudes of people along with us who are waiting to be equal and productive partners in our country's growth and prosperity. And it is definitely imperative on us, it is our onerous responsibility that we give those children even an equal opportunity to play in ensuring that they become productive partners in our country's growth. Therefore, I think it's important when we listen to leaders talk about inclusive growth, inclusiveness, that we need to take the multitudes of these children along with us. Innovators is another thing that he had emphasized on. Innovation is definitely important today. Out-of-box thinking is what we are waiting and we are looking forward to. Innovations are definitely happening in our country. When you look at the pharmaceutical industry, probably a few years ago, the pharmaceutical industry was actually buying known molecules from foreign companies. But today we have at least a dozen of our own pharmaceutical companies who are investing in research and development, inventing their own molecules. Just not in pharmacy, but also in many other sectors. I think the wheel has turned a full circle. You take the automobile sector, for example. 50, 60 years ago, probably it was the British Morris Oxford that was sold to the Indian roads as the ambassador car. But today, it is the Indian Indica which is sold to the London roads as the City Rover. You look at what happened probably a few months ago when we inaugurated the low-cost tablet Akash. A tablet which would cost around 30,000–40,000 of rupees today is going to be available to the children of our country at a rate which nobody can ever imagine. It would be around 1,200 to 1,500 rupees for a child and probably 2,000 to 3,000 rupees in the open market. Now how did this happen? it happened because our Indian intellect was given an opportunity, definitely supported by the conducive policies of the government. Therefore, I don't think we are short of intellect. But what I strongly believe is that this intellect needs to be given an opportunity to bloom, to grow, to ensure that it manifests itself. And I think that kind of an atmosphere needs to be built up not only in organizations, not only in companies, not only in the industry, but even in our country as well. It is only then can we ensure that our motherland can rise to its rightful position. Today, our motherland, India, with a 120 crore plus population, with an ever-expanding middle class of 400 plus, with a very strong democracy in place, and a sustained continuous growth of anywhere between 7 to 8%, even in the most difficult times, can no longer be ignored or marginalized. But what we need today are leaders who can actually ensure that our country travels on the path of growth and development to such a height that nobody can ignore her anymore. Now, as a developing nation, we are in a transformation stage. And transformation for any country, more particularly an emerging economy like India, is definitely very arduous and painful. And what we need is that generation of young minds who can actually support our country in her transformation and make it not a painful and arduous process, but ensure that the benefits that would come out of her transformation is definitely pleasurable and acceptable to us and the world as well. There is a very interesting incident which a friend of mine had encountered when he was actually on the committee when he was interviewing candidates for the position of innovation officers. HR managers are what are called innovation officers today. And this was in a blue chip industry, and as the candidate walked in, he asked the candidate who was facing him as to how he would brand India, because the candidate was bragging on his capabilities on branding various consumer articles when he said, okay, come on, tell me, how are you going to brand India today? He was bogged, he didn't understand, he didn't have an answer, and he was searching for an answer when my friend giving him the cue said, if the United States of America is to call itself the land of opportunities, how will you brand India? And you know what his reply for that was? He said, if USA is to brand itself the land of opportunities, I would call my motherland India the land of ideas. Today, the challenge between all HR professionals is how can you convert this land of ideas into a land of opportunities. And definitely, we are assured that with bright children like all of you seated before the dais, the dear students, who are going to step out of the portals of institutions, you will ensure that you would make this dream a reality for all of us. And therefore, I would like to congratulate Geetam for having supported the Nipm in actually conducting this conference here today over the past 2 days. And I'm sure all that is deliberated would leave an indelible imprint on the minds of all the HR professionals who are here today, even from across the shores. I hear there are people participating. So I'm sure this city of destiny would leave an indelible print which you would not forget and would also help you in actually going forward in your profession. And the Vice Chancellor had just mentioned that he was happy to have me, but I must say that it's a pleasure for me to be here at Geetam, which I always thought was a wonderful university in terms of giving quality education to our children. And of course, at the age of being 50 plus, if somebody is still to call you young, I think I will come to give them any number of congratulating people, congratulating Nipm for the wonderful conference that they are conducting here today. I wish all the students all the very best and hope you would help us realize our dreams in ensuring that our country reaches its real position. And my famous quote is to quote Iqbal when he said that he would want to see our country as Sare Jahan Se Acha Hindustan Hamara.
On behalf of the gathering, I thank the Honorable Minister Srimati Dr. Purandeswari for her enlightening speech and also making the young especially realize that the ultimate aim in one's life must be to establish a humane and just society based on the foundations of liberty, equality and fraternity. Thank you very much, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to share this news with you that Mr. B. Nagartrinath, an alumni of Nipm Institute of Management, who passed out in the year 2007 and also won a gold medal for best all-rounder, and who did his master's degree from IRMA in 2009. Mr. B. Nagartrinath authored a short novel titled The Rascal's Life, and we all feel that it is a very good occasion, the right occasion, and I request our chief guest, Dr. Purandeswari, to kindly release this book written by Mr. Nagartrinath. Thank you very much, Madam, and congratulations, Mr. Nagartrinath. Now I request Mrs. P.L. Rao to kindly come on to the dais.
I request Madam to just give an honor to Mrs. P.L. Rao. P.L. Rao was expired last year. He was given a lot of service to Nipm professional body. He was an employee of HPCL. After retirement, he worked more for the HR professional body by being a chairman of Board of Studies, Board of Trust of Nipm, and he wrote a good number of books. He gave a selfless service to Nipm to bring Nipm into limelight in our country. Please accept the small remembrance of his contribution to Nipm. Another great academician, Professor C.S. Venkatratnam, in the same year. He was director of IMI, where Pritam Singh's office is now Director General. and he did a lot of service to Nipm Visakha chapter. When he was the president of the chapter, we organized the national conference. On this occasion, I request our executive committee member SFR of to come and take on of their family members, and we will pass on to these people. Professor C.S. Venkatatnam was director for our International Business, School of International Business, and he wrote good number of books, and he was very active member from the academicians and trade unions from in ILO, International Labour Organization of India. We're going to hand over these things to Mrs. Thank you, sir. Thank you for accepting this.
And his services. Thank you, one and all. Now I request our Vice Chancellor, Professor G. Subramaniam, to felicitate Mr. Somesh Das Gupta. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sahu. Sri Muralidhar Rao to propose vote of thanks.
And of the very good evening. It is an honor for me to propose the vote of thanks at the Valedictory session of the 30th Annual National Conference of the National Institute of Personnel Management. I thank Mr. Somesh Das Gupta, National Vice President of NIPM and President Corporate Affairs, DPSC Limited, for giving the opening remarks. I thank Professor K. Sivaram Krishna, Chairman of NIPM Visakha Chapter, and Dean Principal of Nipm Institute of Management, Nipm University, for presenting the reports. I thank Sri YPS Kanwar, Honorary General Secretary NIPM, and Deputy General Manager HR ONGC for sharing his views with us. I also thank Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sahu, Regional Vice President, Central Region NIPM, and AGM Durkila for sharing his ideas with the audience. I thank Professor G. Subramaniam, Vice Chancellor, Nipm University, for addressing the gathering. I express my gratitude to the Chief Guest, Honorable Minister of State for HRD, Srimati Dr. Puruji, for kindly consenting to raise the occasion and for her valuable address. I thank Padma Shri Dr. Pritam Singh Ji, Director General, IMI Delhi, for sharing his ideas with us. I thank the print and electronic media for covering this event. And I also thank our sponsors who have supported us for this 3 days conference: ONGC, GAIL, Coal India, IFCO, Indian Oil Corporation, Vista Swing Technology, Petronet